On the heels of this previous crisis came the flu epidemics. Doctors' workloads increased sevenfold, but this created opportunities as well, especially because of the shortage of doctors. So the first lady doctor, Dr. Longland, was appointed, and the first black doctor, Dr. Cornelius, was also hired and received special thanks from the committee for taking on so many patients. He was associated with Swindon for quite a long time, and in 1936, when Reuben George died, Dr. Cornelius wrote a very touching letter, which is printed in the commemorative pamphlet for the funeral, and it speaks of someone, Reuben George, who clearly welcomed and befriended Dr. Cornelius. Another flu epidemic in 1924 saw Dr. A.H. Macklin hired. He was quite a personality. He was a popular speaker at the Mechanics Institute and other places with stories of his experiences as one of the two doctors who accompanied Sir Ernest Shackleton on his 1912 expedition to Antarctica. After this, the Medical Fund Society grew until the Depression of the early 30s. But by 1936, things were getting better again, and expansion continued. In the next few years, membership for the Medical Fund Society grew to more than 40,000 people. Numerous delegations and MPs toured the facilities in the late 30s and 40s, including the London Transport Board, Llanelli Medical Service, and the Nuffield Hospital Trust, and many more. The management committee had consciously hired GPs who had interests that could be developed to create new specialist departments with their own consultants. This meant that patients would be treated locally and not have to be sent to London or Bristol or other places for specialist treatment, also saving money, of course. Almost as soon as the equipment was safely available, a radiology department was started around 1922, and I believe the first radiologist was a woman. A dental surgeon meant that patients needing more than simple extractions could now be treated in-house, and ophthalmology, physical medicine and massage, chiropody, skin, psychology, and pediatrics departments followed. The management committee developed a medical library for the doctors' use, and they held regular meetings at which invited speakers kept the doctors abreast of the latest developments in medicine. So this committee was plainly innovative. The members were all working men, elected by their peers. They put in full days on the shop floor, walked or rode bikes home for a quick meal before rushing out to committee meetings. And if they were late or missed a meeting, they were fined by themselves. Their attendance record was also published in the annual report. Many of them also held positions on other committees, the Mechanics Institute, sports clubs, churches, drama groups, orchestras, choruses, and many more. And some, including George, also served as Swindon Town Councillors. George was a founder member of the Swindon branch of the Labour Party, and in the early 1920s served as Swindon's first housing officer, developing Pinehurst as the first council housing estate. Many families grew their own vegetables on allotments. George, with his neighbours and colleagues, had allotments at the bottom of King's Hill and on Ocus. My brother has a theory that much medical fund and council business must have happened there. Leading up to the NHS, for which plans were well developed before the post-war election that swept the Labour Party to power and began the welfare state, the people of the GWR in Swindon, who had benefited for so long from their own superb medical fund society care, were reticent about the NHS and afraid that it would not live up to their own service. George appealed to Health Minister Aneurin Bevan to allow the society to continue after the start of the NHS, but this, of course, was impossible. Bevan again invited George and Dr. Gibson, who was the current superintendent medical officer, to a final meeting in Whitehall to express his gratitude and his personal sadness that this could not be, stressing that it would not work unless everyone was in. He asked for their support and requested that George serve the NHS as vice chair of the Swindon District Hospital Management Committee, and that both join the Wiltshire Executive Council of the NHS. They did, and George finally retired at age 73 in 1954.